Life, as you know it, will never be fair. No matter how honest, talented, or hardworking you are, someone will always try to take you down. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what you can survive. This world doesn't care about your struggles. The truth is simple. Betrayal will come, and it will hit you when you least expect it. The more skilled you become, the more you'll realize that someone less qualified might take your place. It's a bitter pill, but it's reality. But here's where it gets interesting. While most people crumble under this harsh truth, the ones who truly understand it thrive. They adapt, they learn the game, and they dominate. The survivors are the ones who can withstand betrayal, who can take a hit and rise stronger than before. Those who remain standing are the ones who take control. And those who control, well, they rule. This power, it's something you can't always see, but it's something you feel. It's that subtle presence in a room, the unspoken influence that shifts dynamics, making people lean in respect and even fear. That's the power of dark intelligence. And it's not something that's handed to you on a silver platter. It's born in the darkest of moments, in pain, humiliation, defeat. While others break down, you begin to build yourself back up. You turn your scars into armor. Dark intelligence is the kind of wisdom that doesn't shout. It listens. It watches. It stays quiet when others are speaking, waiting for the right moment to act. It doesn't rush. It waits. While others get emotional, you calculate. While they drown in their feelings, you strategize. You learn to see through the chaos and focus on what matters most, your survival, your rise. Now, here's the thing. Most people are playing checkers. They react to every move with emotion. They try to prove themselves at every turn. But you're about to learn how to play chess. You're about to learn how to think several moves ahead, how to use strategy to guide every decision you make, and how to build an unshakable foundation that no one can break. But before we dive deeper into these powerful strategies, let me be crystal clear about one thing. This knowledge isn't for manipulation. It's for protection. It's for learning how to defend yourself in a world that doesn't always play fair. It's about understanding the game, not about becoming the villain. The goal is to gain control over your life and circumstances, not to hurt others. So, if this resonates with you, if you want to take control, not just survive, but dominate your own reality, I want you to do something right now. Drop a comment below and affirm, I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. That's your first step in stepping into your power. And while you're at it, don't just keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone you care about, a friend, a family member, anyone who needs to hear this truth. Because survival in this world isn't about going it alone. It's about understanding how the game works. And sometimes the best thing you can do is share the knowledge that could change someone's life. Hit that subscribe button to dive even deeper into these secrets and share this video. Because someone in your life might need to hear this right now. Together, we rise. Together, we learn how to win. Let's unlock these secrets that powerful people don't want you to know. Stay tuned, because the real game is just about to begin. One of the most powerful skills you can master in this world is calculated opacity, the ability to keep people guessing about your true intentions. In a world where everyone is constantly talking, giving away every little detail about their lives, those who say less, reveal less, and show only what is necessary become the ones who truly hold power. It's not about being deceptive. It's about strategic communication. It's about holding your cards close to your chest and letting others try to figure out what you're playing. The key to calculated opacity is mastering the art of mystery. When you don't tell people everything, they start filling in the gaps with their own imagination. And that, my friend, is where the power lies. When people don't know the full story, they are forced to pay attention to every word, every action, trying to figure you out. And that curiosity, it draws them in. Curiosity leads to respect, and respect leads to influence. Think about the most intriguing people you know, the ones who command attention without even trying. They never give you everything at once. They leave things unsaid. They tell you only enough to spark your interest, but they hold back the full picture. When you ask them a question, they answer with another question. They don't overshare. Instead, they create gaps in their narrative, and that mystery keeps people on their toes. wondering what they really mean. Now, let's break this down. Imagine someone asks you about your weekend plans. The average person might say, "Oh, I'm just staying home, maybe watching some movies." It's honest, it's clear, and it's completely forgettable. That's what everyone else would say. But now, think about how much more interesting it would be if you responded with something like, "I have something important to take care of," and then move on. You don't offer any more details. You don't give them anything more to latch onto. What happens? They become curious. They want to know more. They want to understand what's so important. But you've already moved on to another subject, leaving them hanging. That curiosity, it sticks. They will remember that moment. You become interesting. This doesn't mean you should be secretive or rude. It doesn't mean you should hide everything or never share anything personal. It's about being selective in what you reveal and when you reveal it. The most successful people in any field, the ones who move the needle, understand a balance between transparency and secrecy. They reveal just enough to keep others engaged, but never enough to lose their power. The most powerful people are the ones who know how to withhold just enough to keep their influence intact. Let's take a closer look at what's really happening in most conversations. When someone asks you a question, you might feel this subtle pressure to answer fully. You explain your thoughts, your motivations, and sometimes even your fears. You think you're building trust, but in reality, you're giving away your power. You're showing your cards too early. What happens when you do that? People know exactly where you stand. They see your vulnerabilities. They see your intentions. And in that instant, they start to control the narrative because they know everything about you. But when you practice calculated opacity, you're not afraid to let people wonder. You leave gaps in your story, and you allow them to come to their own conclusions. This doesn't mean you're lying. It means you're strategically controlling the flow of information. When you're selective about what you share, people start to hang on to every word you say. Your silence becomes powerful because they're trying to figure out what you're not saying. And when they're trying to figure you out, they can't help but respect your control over the conversation. Think about it this way. Information is your currency. When you give away too much too soon, you spend your currency all at once. It's gone. But when you withhold and release it strategically, it becomes a precious resource, one that people treasure and seek more of. They'll respect your words because they're rare. They'll pay attention because they know you don't speak unnecessarily. Now, here's where the magic happens. The more you practice calculated opacity, the more you start to create influence without trying. You're not manipulating people. You're simply building a presence that others want to be a part of. People become intrigued, drawn to you, because they can sense that you're different. They can't figure you out, and that's where your power lies. But remember, the goal isn't to be mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. The goal is control. It's about keeping a firm grip on your narrative and how people perceive you. When you don't reveal everything, you maintain power over the situation. You don't let your circumstances dictate your actions. You choose when, how, and to whom you share your story. So, here's what you need to do. Start practicing calculated opacity in your everyday life. The next time someone asks you about something personal, don't feel the need to tell them everything. Leave a gap. Let them wonder. You'll start to notice how much more attention you get, how much more respect you command, and how much more influence you hold in conversations. And here's one final thought. When you master this principle, your words will carry weight. People will value your silence just as much as your words. They'll remember what you don't say just as much as what you do. That's true power. And that power, it's yours to wield. If you found this concept interesting, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who could use a little more mystery and influence in their life. Hit that subscribe button. If you're ready to learn more strategies for mastering dark intelligence and building your power, because the more you understand how to control the flow of information, the more you'll start to control the game. Stay tuned, because there's a lot more to uncover. One of the most essential tools you can wield in this game of life is the ability to shape and shift your persona based on the environment and the people around you. This isn't about being fake, manipulative, or wearing a mask. It's about understanding that different situations and different people require different versions of yourself. The secret to success isn't being the same with everyone. It's knowing how to adapt your presentation of yourself in order to be the most effective. Think of it like a chameleon. The chameleon doesn't change its essence. It adapts its colors to fit the environment. Similarly, you don't need to change who you are at your core, but you must be willing to adapt your approach to suit the context and the people you're interacting with. When you do this, you tap into a level of communication that most people simply don't understand. This is the power of adaptive persona, the art of adjusting who you are based on who you're dealing with, while never losing your integrity, your values, or your core principles. The truth is, everyone has their own unique ways of processing information, their own personal values, and their own communication styles. If you treat everyone the same, some will understand you while others will miss the point entirely. Smart people who understand the rules of this game, learn how to recognize those differences and adjust their approach to fit the individual. This isn't manipulation, it's strategic communication. Let's dive deeper. Have you ever had to speak to your grandmother? I bet you don't talk to her the same way you talk to your friends. Why? Because your grandmother's values, communication style, and way of understanding the world are different from your friends. You naturally adjust your tone, your body language, and your vocabulary because you know what resonates with her. When you're in a job interview, you adjust again. You speak more formally, emphasize your achievements, and show your value to the company. At a party, you're more relaxed, more engaging, and perhaps even more playful. You already do this naturally. The concept of adaptive persona simply takes this instinctive behavior and refines it, making it intentional. You're not just adjusting for the sake of adjusting. You're doing it because you want to connect with the person in front of you in the most effective way possible. This skill allows you to navigate complex social situations, be persuasive in negotiations, and build powerful relationships, whether with a colleague, a boss, or a complete stranger. And here's the thing. The more you refine this skill, the more people will feel understood by you. They'll feel like you get them, and people gravitate toward others who understand them. Now, let's break this down into something actionable. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone who is very analytical, someone who loves facts, data, and logical reasoning. If you approach them with broad, vague statements and emotional appeals, you'll lose them. But if you present your ideas with concrete facts, figures, and a logical structure, you'll immediately catch their attention. On the other hand, if you're dealing with someone more emotional or intuitive, they won't care as much about cold, hard facts. They'll connect better to stories, feelings, and shared experiences. You're still conveying the same core message, but you're doing it in a way that appeals to the other person's way of processing information. And it doesn't stop there. There are people who are very practical, focus on action and results, while others are more big-picture thinkers, more interested in visions, possibilities, and future outcomes. Knowing who you're dealing with and adjusting your presentation accordingly will make your communication far more effective. When you speak their language, you make them feel heard, and that builds trust, which is essential for influence. Think of this like water. Water takes the shape of the container it's in, yet remains fundamentally the same substance. Similarly, you can adapt your persona to fit the situation, but you never lose your core self. Your values, your integrity, your principles, they should always remain consistent, no matter the circumstances. That's the key to mastery in this principle, adaptability with authenticity. One of the most common mistakes people make is thinking that being authentic means being the same person in every situation. That's simply not true. Authenticity doesn't mean never changing. It means staying true to your core values while adapting your behavior to be the most effective. Authenticity is about being genuine in every situation, but that doesn't mean being rigid or unchangeable. Your ability to read the room, adjust your approach, and still be true to who you are is what sets you apart from the rest. Now, let's talk about the power this gives you. Mastering the adaptive persona means you become someone who can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time. It means you can enter any room, navigate any situation, and make the people around you feel comfortable and understood. You're never forcing yourself to fit in. You're making it easy for others to connect with you. This is what separates great leaders, great negotiators, and great influencers from the rest. They're not trying to manipulate people into understanding them. They're making it simple for others to get on their wavelength. And the best part? When people feel understood, they trust you more, they respect you more, and they're more likely to follow your lead. But here's a crucial caveat. Never adapt so much that you lose yourself. The more you practice adapting your persona, the more you need to remember that your values and integrity should never change. Your core principles must remain firm. It's important to adjust to connect, but never to the point where you're compromising who you are. The strongest individuals, the ones with true influence, are like diamonds. They have many facets, but at the core, they remain solid and unbreakable. When you get this right, you become a force in any room. People will gravitate toward you because you can speak their language, meet them where they are, and make them feel understood. This is what true influence is. Being able to adapt to every situation, yet always staying true to your essence. The best communicators are the ones who have mastered this principle. So, how do you practice this? Start small. In your next conversation, pay attention to the person you're talking to. Are they analytical? Are they emotional? Are they practical or visionary? Tailor your approach to them. Be intentional about how you present yourself. As you do this more and more, you'll start to notice something incredible. You'll build stronger connections. You'll influence others more effectively, and you'll become a master at navigating any situation. And it all starts with understanding that you don't have to be the same with everyone. You just have to be your best self in the best way possible for each unique person or situation. Remember, the more you adapt your presentation, the more you'll connect with others. But never forget that your integrity should always be the solid core that holds everything together. This is the real power behind adaptive persona. And once you master it, you'll be unstoppable. One of the most powerful concepts in the world of dark intelligence is detachment. It's often misunderstood as coldness or a lack of care, but in reality, detachment is about freedom, the kind of freedom that grants you true power. It's about not being emotionally enslaved by any person, situation, or outcome. Detachment is the ability to let go of attachments that hold you back, and it's the secret weapon of those who navigate life's most complex situations with poise, clarity, and strength. Think about it. Most people are driven by their attachments. They're afraid of losing their job, so they tolerate poor treatment. They're afraid of losing a relationship, so they compromise their values. They crave approval, so they say what others want to hear instead of speaking their truth. These attachments make you weak. They make you vulnerable. The fear of loss is one of the most crippling forces in human nature. It forces you to settle, to accept less than you deserve, and to abandon your principles to avoid discomfort. But detachment changes everything. When you're not afraid of losing something, you take control of it. You see situations more clearly, make better decisions, and act strategically without being clouded by emotional neediness or fear. What you're not afraid to lose cannot control you, and that is the key to ultimate power. Let's break this down with a simple example. Think about a negotiation. Picture two people in a business deal. Person that desperately needs this deal to work. They've made plans based on it. They've already imagined the outcomes, and they have nowhere else to turn. Person B, on the other hand, would like the deal to work out, but they have other options. They're willing to walk away if the terms aren't right. Who has the most power? Person B, of course. Why? Because they are detached from the outcome. They're not emotionally invested in making the deal happen at all costs. They don't need it, and because of that, they can negotiate from a position of strength. Detachment isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about freedom from the fear of loss. It's about maintaining your autonomy, clarity, and peace of mind, even in the face of challenging circumstances. When you're detached, you're not swayed by emotions. You're not desperate for validation, approval, or even love. Instead, you see things objectively. You make decisions based on logic and strategy, not out of fear or insecurity. And this allows you to make moves that others can't, because they're too emotionally attached to their desires, their reputations, or their outcomes. Here's an interesting paradox about detachment. The less you need something, the more likely you are to get it. People who are detached from approval, success, or the approval of others are the ones who often attract those things. Why? Because they don't chase them, they let them come to them naturally. People can sense desperation. They can feel when you're too attached to an outcome, and that sense of neediness pushes them away. But when you're detached, When you're not desperate for anything, your presence alone commands respect. Think about the most confident people you know. They're not confident because everything always goes their way. In fact, many of them probably face setbacks and challenges like everyone else. What makes them confident is the knowledge that they'll be okay even when things don't go as planned. They know that their value isn't tied to any single outcome, and that level of certainty and calmness is what makes others respect them. That is the power of detachment. It's the ability to stand firm, unshaken, no matter what happens. This is what makes detachment so powerful in relationships, whether in personal relationships or professional ones. When you're not afraid to be alone, you can choose better. When you're not afraid of being wrong, you can make better decisions. When you're not afraid of failure, you can take risks that lead to growth. The more you detach from fear, the more you can act from a place of strength and clarity. You're no longer a slave to your circumstances. You become the one who shapes those circumstances. But here's the real strength in detachment. It's the mental clarity it brings. When you're not emotionally invested in a particular outcome, you can think clearly. You're not making decisions based on fear, anxiety, or the need to please others. Instead, you're making decisions based on what's best for you, your goals, and your future. You can objectively evaluate a situation and choose your best course of action. This is why those who practice detachment tend to make the best leaders, the best negotiators, and the best decision makers. Here's an example of how detachment works in practice. Let's say you're in a difficult conversation with a colleague or friend. If you're emotionally attached to being right, you might find yourself defending your position out of ego or pride. You might escalate the situation unnecessarily just to prove your point. But someone who's detached from the outcome of the conversation will approach it differently. They'll listen objectively, stay calm, and be open to the other person's perspective. They're not afraid of being wrong. They're focused on understanding, resolving the issue, and moving forward. As a result, they'll likely have a more productive conversation, one that leads to a better solution for everyone involved. The same principle applies to negotiations. When you're attached to the outcome of a deal or negotiation, you're more likely to make concessions just to keep things moving. But when you're detached, you don't care about the immediate result. What you care about is making the best decision. You'll walk away if the deal isn't right, and you'll wait for something better. People who are detached from the outcome of negotiation don't settle for bad deals. They negotiate from strength because they're not desperate for a win. One thing that detachment also helps with is resilience. Life is full of setbacks, and we all face moments where things don't go according to plan. People who are attached to their goals can easily fall into despair when things go wrong. They might take it personally or feel like they've failed. But someone who's detached doesn't tie their self-worth to any particular outcome. They understand that setbacks are just a part of life. They stay focused on their long-term vision, not the temporary obstacles in their way. So what's the takeaway here? Detachment isn't about being indifferent. It's about choosing freedom over fear, clarity over confusion, and power over weakness. When you practice detachment, you free yourself from the need to control everything and everyone around you. You allow yourself to make decisions based on what's best for you and not what's emotionally convenient in the moment. Here's a challenge for you. Start small. Practice detaching from things that don't matter as much. Stop obsessing over minor details. Don't worry about winning every argument. Let go of the need for constant approval. As you begin to practice detachment, you'll notice that life becomes clearer, easier, and more empowering. You'll become someone who is not easily manipulated by circumstances, someone who chooses their path with purpose and clarity. And remember, the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing to lose. But the most powerful person is the one who has everything to gain and nothing to fear. That person is you when you master the principle of detachment. One of the most subtle yet powerful techniques of dark intelligence is psychological echo, the art of reflecting back people's deepest needs, desires, and fears in a way that makes them feel understood, valued, and even inspired. This technique is rooted in the concept of deep listening and strategic communication, where you don't just hear what people say, but you understand what they truly mean, even if they're not fully aware of it themselves. When you master psychological echo, you don't just communicate effectively. You build trust, influence, and connection in ways most people can't even fathom. At its core, Psychological echo is about becoming a mirror, not a mirror that simply reflects back superficial words or actions, but one that reflects the emotional subtext behind those words. It's the ability to listen beyond the surface and capture the underlying emotional needs that drive what people say and do. By doing this, you can create an environment where people feel completely understood, which automatically strengthens your bond with them and makes them more likely to trust, follow, and respect you. Here's how it works. Every person you meet carries invisible burdens, fears, and unspoken needs. These are the emotional triggers that influence their decisions, behaviors, and reactions. However, most people never take the time to listen deeply enough to uncover these hidden layers. They listen to respond, not understand. They're too busy focusing on their own message, their own agenda, to truly hear what the other person is communicating on a deeper level. And that's where you have an advantage. When you focus on listening to understand, when you listen for emotion behind the words, need behind the complaints, and desire behind the requests, you unlock a level of influence that most people never tap into. Let's break this down with an example. Suppose someone tells you, "I hate my job." Most people respond with advice like, "You should look for a new job," or "Maybe you just need a vacation." But a psychological echo response would look deeper. You might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling unappreciated or like your work isn't challenging you anymore." This response isn't about solving the problem right away. It's about acknowledging the emotion and reflecting it back to the person. In doing so, you make them feel seen, heard, and understood, which immediately builds a sense of trust. Instead of offering a quick fix, you're allowing them to feel like their inner experience has been recognized and validated. The beauty of psychological echo is that it doesn't require you to have all the answers or provide a solution. Your mere understanding of their emotional world creates a deep connection. When people feel understood at this level, their barriers go down and they're more open to listening to your ideas, to following your lead, and to trusting your judgment. This is a form of influence that transcends traditional power dynamics because it's rooted in empathy, connection, and shared understanding. Now, let's explore how to apply psychological echo in various situations. Think about the 3 silent questions every person is constantly asking during any interaction. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Do you value me? When you master psychological echo, your goal is to answer yes to all 3 of these questions through your words, actions, and demeanor. The more you can reflect back what someone truly needs to hear, the more powerful your influence becomes. When you reflect the right emotional cues, people feel like you get them, and that creates an instant connection. For example, if someone is frustrated about their situation, a typical response might be to offer advice or attempt to fix the problem. However, a psychological echo response would look like this. "It seems like you're really frustrated with how things are going, and that's understandable. It sounds like you want more control over what's happening." This response doesn't just acknowledge their frustration. It validates their emotional experience, which is a critical step in building rapport and influence. Psychological echo also works in leadership. A great leader doesn't just issue orders. They understand the emotional state of their team, and they reflect that understanding back to the group. Let's say you're managing a team and one of your team members seems disengaged or unmotivated. Rather than assuming they just don't care, you might say, "I can sense that you're feeling overwhelmed by everything on your plate right now. Let's talk about what's going on and see how we can prioritize things." In doing so, you're not only recognizing their feelings, but also creating an opening for dialogue, which can lead to solutions and improvements in both productivity and morale. Another key aspect of psychological echo is the ability to frame your ideas, requests, and suggestions in terms of what the other person values. Think about this. Every person you meet has a unique psychological profile. Some people value security and stability, while others value freedom and independence. Some people seek recognition, while others are more interested in being part of a team. When you understand what drives someone emotionally, you can tailor your communication to resonate with those values. You don't change your core message. You change how you present it, so it aligns with what the other person needs to hear. For instance, if someone values security and you need them to take a risk, you might frame the conversation like this. "I understand that stability is really important to you, and I think this new opportunity could actually help us create a more secure and predictable future." If someone values recognition, You might frame the conversation like this. This project will really highlight your strengths and give you the recognition you deserve. The core message remains the same, but the way you present it speaks directly to their needs. Here's where the power of psychological echo truly comes into play. When you understand people's fears and needs, you can guide them toward decisions that benefit both of you. This isn't manipulation. It's about leading others toward positive outcomes. You're not exploiting their vulnerabilities. You're helping them make decisions that will serve their greater good. And because you reflected their emotional world back to them, they're more likely to trust your guidance and follow your lead. But like all powerful tools, psychological echo should be used with integrity. It's essential that you truly care about understanding others and serving their best interests. The goal isn't to manipulate people into doing what you want. The goal is to build genuine relationships where everyone's needs are met. The most effective use of psychological echo comes when you help people discover solutions to their own problems through the lens of what they value most. When you master psychological echo, you create a bond with people that goes beyond surface-level interaction. You become someone they feel they can trust because you've shown that you understand them at a deep, emotional level. This deep understanding leads to influence, not because you've used manipulation or trickery, but because you've authentically aligned your communication with their inner world.